meeting will come to order. This meeting will come to order. Do we have any special intentions? Seeing none, I will lead us in the prayer. Please stand. Let us bow our heads. Dear Lord, our God, we ask that you protect us. We ask that you protect us and our families from the COVID virus, and may the effects upon mankind be greatly diminished so as not to harm anyone. We ask that you enable all those affected by Hurricane Ida to get back to normalcy as soon as possible. We ask that we be free from any further concerns of storms during the remainder of this hurricane season. And we ask that all of our elected officials be guided by your hand so that they all do their best for the people that we represent, our constituents. May we know your will and do your will. We ask all these things in your good name. Amen.
Amen.
Councilman Brannigan, if you'll lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Every 10 years, the Kenner Council redistricts, and during this process, we hold 2 public hearings for the public to have input into the process. The first hearing was scheduled for today, Monday, October 18, 2021, which is what we just commenced at noon here at the Macy's building in the Esplanade Mall, Kenner. And the second meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, October 20th, 2021, which is to commence at 6 p.m. at the Kenner's Senior Citizens Center, 641 Compromise Street in Kenner. The Litchfield team is here today to present and will give a presentation introducing their team, general information on redistricting, map alternatives, and then we will take up public comments. Madam Clerk.
Yes, sir. We are here to discuss the following summary. Summary ordinance number 12,908, an ordinance dividing the city of Kenner into 5 councilmanic districts and providing an effective date therefore. Ms. Salah?
At this time, I'd like to introduce Mr. John Litchfield and his team. Mr. Litchfield?
Can everyone hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you. My name is John Litchfield, and I practice law. I'm a lawyer that the city has hired to help them in their redistricting or examination and then redistricting if necessary. Just a little bit about me. I've been practicing for 40-something years, I think 45 years. I've represented various municipalities, the government, the governor, attorney general, various people like that throughout the course of my career, along with a lot of other private people. The city hired me as a lawyer because, candidly, what you end up with in these types of disputes is a lawsuit. And so it's smart to do things right for various purposes, litigation one of them, but just to do things right for the right's sake, you have to follow the law. And the following the law in these types of situations means transparency. And that is part of the process that your council people want to make sure you know that they're involved with and promote. What I've done is to get a team together. I'm not the demographer, I'm not the expert. But I do know that we as a team and your city council has to follow the law. And there's so many laws dealing with representation and voting. The big one dealing with districting involves the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and its amendments in 1982. I'm not going to go through all that with you. I would be here for a month. And you can read many, many lawsuits. You can read many, many articles about it. Your council has 2 basic jobs ahead of it. Number one, it has to examine your current apportionment, your current districting. And that districting has changed in 10 years. That's why the law requires the council to re-examine it every 10 years to see if any changes are necessary to that district plan. Some of those changes are necessary for various reasons, which the experts will tell you, because you're trying to get as many districts even in numbers. That's just a basic start, because you don't want one district representing 100 people, one district representing 6 people. That's not fair, to use an extreme example. Another major component of the districting and redistricting is if, in fact, the district plans to be changed, i.e. you need to redistrict it, then you must make sure that minority voting strength is not diluted. A lot of what these statisticians do, a lot of what these experts do, a lot of what these mathematicians do, these demographers do, is to come up with plans that accomplish a lot of different things. Equality among districts is one, but to avoid diminution of minority voting strength is a major one. And that's been on their minds, and that's been in their calculations. Let me tell you a little bit about the team that we put together, and I think it's a very strong team. The Census Bureau gives you reams and reams and reams of data. So you need to have a statistician, you need to have a demographer, and you need to have what's called a GIS expert, which is a Geographic Information System expert. Microphone told me my time's up. What I've done is I got a mathematician, statistician from the University of New Orleans. He's the head of he's the chairman of the Department of Mathematics. He has been accepted in so many different courts, including our local district court, the Eastern District of Louisiana, as an expert witness. He is an expert, as all of these gentlemen are, in statistics and mathematics. His name is Dr. Solanke. He's not here with us today, but he is part of the team. A big part of the team is a fellow who is with us today, and that's Greg Rigemer. Greg Rigemer has been around, I'm not sure quite as long as I have, but a long time. And his job is numbers and statistics and populations and voting. He looks at voting strength, he looks at the diminution of voting power, he looks at the numbers in terms of equality, and he and the rest of his team put together this demonstration that you're going to see here today. The third fellow as part of the team is the Geographic Information Specialist, Mr. Poche, who is also with us here today. He does a lot with the computer networks and making sure that these things are presentable and done in such a way that they will eventually pass muster, because what your council does needs to be filed with the Secretary of State in a GIS pattern or in a format. All right, that being said, let me tell you a little bit what I think we're trying to accomplish today, and that's part of the transparency. Today is to give you, the citizens of Kenner, an opportunity to voice your concerns, say things, express yourselves. This is the time to do it. That doesn't mean you're going to get an answer right away, necessarily, because sometimes they're answerable, sometimes they're not. You can just make a comment. That's fine, too. The council's here, as you know, to take in what you say. And that's what they're going to do. They're not necessarily going to respond to you today, but they're going to take in what you say today. There will be 2 of these meetings, as Councilman Wilmot has said. Today's the first one, and the next one is Wednesday at 6 o'clock, and you're welcome to attend that one also. You're not barred just because you're here today. After today's meeting and after Wednesday's meeting, the council will then have a regular meeting, which I believe is scheduled for October 29. That's another public meeting. Now, it's at that meeting that the council's in charge. That's their meeting, in which time they are going to consider what needs to be done in terms of districting and redistricting. And I suspect somebody's going to introduce an ordinance to adopt one of these plans or another plan. You'll see today also, and then that vote does, and then that's what it is. That's the end of the ball game as far as we're concerned. Once the ordinance is adopted, that's it. What you'll see today is this. didn't pass my microphone class. I skipped out that day. But what you see here today is this. Your team has looked at the existing plan. That's the job of the council. I will forewarn you that the existing plan is not going to pass constitutional or statutory muster because it's not equal. And the council will end up making that determination, but the recommendation will be that it's not equal, and therefore a court would kick that out. So if they get past that hurdle of accepting or not accepting the existing plan, then the question is, what do we do now? And what the team has put together are 4 alternatives, which are just suggestions. You're not bound by this. Nobody's bound by this, and certainly the council is not bound by this. But these are 4 suggestions that we submit to you, fit within the constitutional muster, will pass constitutional muster, and will be acceptable by the court and survive any challenge in federal court or in state court. So what we're here today is let you have an opportunity to listen to the experts, Mr. Regimer and his team, Mr. Poche, and then make your comments. The council will then listen to what you say, take everything in consideration, and then go to the meeting on the 29th. That being said, let me introduce Greg Regimer.
Thank you. I'm Greg Regimer, and I'd like to point out a couple of things about the process. First of all, the census released 2020 block level data in August, and it's very detailed relative to the occupancy of every block. With that, that becomes the basis for redistricting. So we look at the population of the existing council district configuration and see how much of a variance there is from the smallest district to the largest district. So what we know, right now we have over a 17% difference between the smallest district and the largest district. So therefore, it triggers redistricting because we can't be more than 10% from the smallest to the largest. So if 17, Council District 5 is about 9% above the average, and Council District 1 is about 8% below the average, and that's why we have about 17, okay? Council District 1 is a majority district, and we've really got to work to preserve that. But another thing you'll hear us talk about is what we call partisan voting index, because we don't want to change the basic political or cultural or communal character of an area with a new redistricting plan. So what a partisan voting index is, we take elections like the presidential, the U.S. Senate in 16, when Senator Kennedy ran, because everybody votes, on those races. Governor, the Attorney General in 2019, the President in 2020, and the Senate, U.S. Senate in 2020, Senator Cassidy's race. And look at those races, sum up how many votes were cast for the Republican candidate, how many votes were cast for the Democratic candidate, and that becomes the partisan voting index. And so we know what that is for the existing districts, and then we want to see, okay, when we draw these new districts, let's try to keep the area very similar as we can. So when we look at the 2020 population by council district, we can see Council District 1 is about 8% below the average. Council District 3 is about 6% below average, and then Council Districts 4 and 5 are above average. So there's going to have to be some shifting to try to get those as close to equal as possible, or at least within a 10% range. So these are the existing districts by population that we have everything, and by precinct. And so we started with an alternative, alternative 1. This plan has an overall population deviation of less than 5%. It's about 4.47%. Very few split precincts. If possible, you try to avoid split precincts. It makes the election process a lot cleaner and the like, but sometimes you have to do it, and we did. District 1 picks up precinct K30 from District 2. District 2 takes 17K from 4, which you might want to point on the map. These are the individual district alternative maps. Over there, we have a composite. So if you get a chance, walk by, look at the composite, and you can see how they compare to each other. And the changes from the existing configuration are highlighted on that. So it's easy to see where the differences are. Okay? In alternative 1, we have, once again, we really look at the partisan lean that we spoke about, and we see that it's very similar to what we have in the existing configuration. So it's a good alternative from that standpoint. We maintain the majority-minority population in District 1. Alternative 2. And then, once again, in your packet, you have which precincts are assigned to which districts. Alternative 2 lowers the overall population deviation to about 5.1%, and it increases the minority percentage in District 1 by picking up a few streets north of Airline Highway. Sorry, right up in here. District 4 picks up selected streets from District 5 on the north, up here, we can see. And District 2 picks up the Esplanade Mall area and a few streets next to Castle Drive, which Rich is pointing out there. Once again, when we look at this district configuration, alternative 2, it's pretty good. Minor variation, only 5% between the lowest and the greatest. And the partisan lean, as you can see, is very similar to the character of the existing council districts. And once again, precincts by council district. Alternative 3 is another minor variation of this. The alternative has an overall population deviation of under 10%. It represents a minimal change from the existing council districts. District 1 has moved one or more streets into District 5, right up in there. District 4 picks up from District 5 on the north, right where Richard's pointing over there. And District 2 picks up the Esplanade Mall area, a few streets over. Now, this is close to the first. We have close to the existing, but it still has some change. So trying to minimize the amount of change from the current situation, we developed Alternative 4. Okay? Alternative 4 is very close to the existing council configuration. This plan has an overall population deviation that's a little higher than the others, but it's within a permissible area. So a decision is made. Do you want to try to keep things as close as they are to the current districts, and if so, are you willing to tolerate a little bit more of a population deviation? Once again, it's under 10%, so it's okay. District 1 has moved a couple of one or more streets into District 5. It's moved in there. District 4 does not change at all in this plan. District 3 picks up a small area, gives a small area District 3 picks up a small area from District 2. And then once again, when we look at this is an acceptable alternative by all standards. The partisan lean is very similar to what we see in the current districts. It's very similar to the current district configuration, just made some modifications so that we meet the minimum requirements set for redistricting. And we have the split precincts, where we have precincts that are split, and because precincts are large, sometimes you can't take a whole precinct into a new district. You have to split it to just get several blocks. We try to minimize this to the extent possible, and the 4 alternatives we have, we think all would be acceptable to the courts for a final review. Now, once again, as Mr. Litchfield said, these are suggestions. We're not endorsing any plan. We're just trying to make the numbers work. Richard, would you like to say anything about these alternatives?
Sure.
Yeah, I'll just go back to the existing plan and just kind of walk through some of the things as you want to come up and take a look at the plans. Just remember that District 3 has to increase in population, so it needs to grow, and District 5 needs to shrink. So in dealing with that, District 2 is okay the way it is, and District 1 needs to pick up. So in District 3, if it needs to grow, does it grow into District 4? Does it pick up from District 2? And, it kind of creates a domino effect. As you affect one, you have to affect the other districts, and it just kind of cascades around. District 1 needs to pick up, so it either pick up from District 2 or District 5 in this way. District 4 doesn't really have a lot of area that it could pick up. But as you do this, we look at the precincts, and then we go down to the census block level to try to modify those boundaries.
And so, that's essentially what it is. It's not a great change from where you are today relative to district configuration. The main difference is that the population is more evenly distributed among the 5 districts than it is currently. And that just reflects the growth in the community, the changing patterns, over the past 10 years. So, John?
Okay, thank you, Greg. Thank you, Richard. All right, this is the opportunity for any of you to want to say something, come to the podium, address the council. The council's here. We're waiting to listen to you. To the extent we can answer questions, it can't be a long question and answer session because we'll be here for months. But if there's something simple you want to ask, we'll try to accommodate you as best we can. But this is our opportunity, or your opportunity rather, for the council to hear your comments about either the existing plan or any of the 4 alternative suggestion plans, or if you have a suggestion, this is your opportunity to let the council know that. So do we have a sign-in list, Joyce? Do you have a list of people?
Ms. Tweed?
These are people who asked to speak. Let me apologize if I mispronounce your names in advance. The first is Terry Nadrowski. How did I do?
You did really well.
Thanks.
I'm here on behalf of Canes Brûlée. I think 3/4 of the room, if they did a show of hands, will see that we are here and represented. We want to urge the council to vote for proposal number 4. Number 1, because it is the least amount of change, puts us within the acceptable number. Number 2 is because we feel we want to stay in District 4, because District 4, served by our councilman, Mr. Brannigan, best serves our best interest because our entrance will always be in District 4, and therefore we have a better say in what goes on at the pavilion, the very large lot of land on Chateau that will someday hopefully be developed. So we're basically urging the council to vote to keep us in District 4.
Okay, it's hard for me to read the next one. It looks like Frank Willemcure. Okay, you pass. Desi Semsus. S-A-S-S-U-M-S. Sesums. I didn't do well in reading.
No, that's okay. I'm also here as part of Canes Brûlée and the Civic Association, and I just want to say that we understand the equality of population. However, the first 3 alternatives actually move us into District 2, where we would have very little impact on what happens in that district because the District 4 is most of the development or activity that happens in District 4 would impact us directly with regard to traffic considerations, with regard to development in that area. And I think that when we redistrict, we need to consider impact on these various subdivisions and not just population considerations.
Thank you very much. Richard Brown?
Thank you. My name is Richard Brown. I live on Sessions Lane in Westwood subdivision, and I'm also the commissioner in charge for precinct K17 at Christ the King Church in Cane Brulee. And I want to echo what the previous two speakers from Cane Brulee said. As both commissioner in charge of that precinct and as a resident of what's currently in District 4, Westwood subdivision, I strongly prefer option 4. Everyone who I have talked to also prefers option 4. When Holly Heights and Westwood had its civic association, I was an officer in that. All the people who I have talked to in my area still absolutely prefer option 4. It pretty much maintains us exactly as we are now, and we think that is just a perfect arrangement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Saul Hyman?
Everything has been said succinctly. I got nothing to add.
Okay. Mr. Hyman has said he has nothing to add. Debbie Fernandez?
Same here, nothing to add.
Okay, Ms. Fernandez says she has nothing to add either. Greg Teft?
My name is Greg Teft, and while I'm not saying I'm going with the alternative for 4 because of moving to districts such as Brannigan's got in District 4, alternative 4 though is the least intrusive. It basically almost leaves everything about the same with just a few minor changes. So I want to say that for me and for some of the people in my community, we want to stay within alternative 4 if possible. Thank you.
Okay, that ends the public comments, so I'll turn it over. First of all, let me thank you for your participation. It was very, very good. This is all part of the American system that makes this country so great. Councilman Wilmot?
Thank you. And I presume that we had everybody speak that wanted to speak from the public? Any other comments? Okay. Everybody got a packet, I presume, that was handed out? Everybody got a packet that wanted one? If not, they're over here at the front entrance. Very good. We do have a second meeting that's going to occur in 2 days on Wednesday. It's at the Senior Citizen Center in South Kenner at 841 Compromise Street. That again, if you think of any questions and you want to reappear, that meeting will be held again. That's 841 Compromise, and it's Wednesday, and that meeting's going to be at 6 p.m.
Council President, I apologize.
Yes, ma'am.
It's 641 Compromise,
640.
and it's Council on Aging.
Council, there we go.
I'm so sorry.
No, I appreciate that information. So it's Council on Aging, 641 Compromise. I stand corrected, and thank you very much for that. And if anybody else has any other questions, if not, then we'll be adjourned. Yes, Councilman Brannigan.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out today. It's the American way, and I appreciate everyone showing up.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none? Motion? Move. We're adjourned. Thank you.